Students/teachers of Reddit, what's the best forgot to turn off the mic story during virtual learning? Story 1. Well, it happened in one of the classes. The teacher was going through a rough time and the class could feel it. We assured her that we had done our homework and that she could take rest for the time being. She agreed and told she would switch her mic off and sleep for a while, as we did whatever. Her husband was right beside her and the mic wasn't turned off. She told, "I am so lucky to have these students," and started sobbing to her husband. We all heard this, but kept quiet to prevent her being embarrassed. She slept well during that time and we sent her a thank you gift collectively. Story 2. I teach for an online university that requires me to conduct a weekly live session. One morning I was lecturing and a student popped in late. I said, "Hello, student name. Thanks for joining us." She said, "Don't say my name, bitch," just before she realized her mic was on and turned it off. I just laughed. Story 3. Ironically, my IT teacher forgot to turn off his mic and camera and proceeded to get in a very heated argument on the phone with his ex-girlfriend who he has a kid with. Did I mention that she's also a teacher at our school? Yeah, most awkward 5 minutes of my life before he realized. Story 4. I was producing a video for some university professors on a specific medical thing for a virtual learning course. I was all set up to shoot the process, and the teachers excused themselves to the next office to regroup and have a chat. I already had their wireless lab mics attached and fed to my camera, so when I sat down at the camera and put on my headphones, I immediately heard their conversation. They were criticizing me, saying they couldn't believe they hired someone so young, inexperienced in that particular medical field, how I looked, how I asked questions, etc. Oops. At least I made them a fine video. These days I don't put my headphones on until we're about to shoot. Story 5. In a math class I was in last year, we were taking a test, which you have to turn your mic on for, their way of trying to prevent cheating. Some girl apparently forgot that hers was on and started belting out "Stand By You" by Rachel Platten at the top of her lungs. It went on for the entire song and she was still humming it when I finished the test and left the call. Story 6. Not a mic but an elementary student left their camera for a moment and the mother walked by naked. Guessing she asked him to leave the room so she could change or something, not realizing the camera was left on. Edit, I just got back on Reddit and saw the reaction. Wow, far and away my highest upvoted comment. Would not have guessed that this one would blow up. Reddit is too thirsty. Story 7. I'm not a student, but I work in the tech industry. I've been in meetings where people forget to mute themselves on large company calls, with hundreds or thousands of attendees, and we'll hear a fart and then a toilet flush. That's about as interesting as these meetings get though. Story 8. So I have one. I just did 8-hour Zoom calls for 7 weeks training for a new project. On the second week, a man unmutes his call, farts the longest fart I've ever heard in my life, then when he finishes, mutes the call. I can see others laughing while muted at his fatal error of thinking he wasn't muted, and so he went to mute his call. I found this to be the highlight of the week, but the following week the guy does it again. Honestly, the second time I laughed, but then started to wonder if it was some kind of power move. Story 9. Not virtual, but I was a guest speaker at a music college last year. My mic was still on when I finished, went backstage and said, "Well, that was fucking horrible." I wasn't called back to speak again. Edit, for those curious of the aftermath, I heard it out of the speakers and an immediate uproar of laughter ensued. I would have laughed had I been a student, but as a working professional it was one of the single most awkward experiences of my life. Story 10. I had a student's boyfriend, both college, walk up behind her on Zoom, reach into her shirt, pull out her breasts, and start doing a little boob dance. She was just laughing and playfully slapping his hands away. This was probably 30 seconds after I had just gone through my whole speech of making sure there was nothing in your browser history, Google search history, or names of folders that could be embarrassing or offensive. Story 11. One time in an art class, separate from my school, my dad knocked on my door. It was dead silent at that point, everyone was working on their projects. I clicked the mute button and yelled "what?" Turns out my mic was already muted and I turned it on. I startled the entire class and the teacher asked if I was okay. Edit, I know everyone hates these, but WTF, I was not expecting this to happen. And I got my first award? Thank you. Story 12. I was visiting my best friend during a lecture and she had her mic and video turned off. She then had to join a group discussion and sometimes unmuted herself to contribute something. After that, the whole class was supposed to present their results and she supposedly muted herself again. I started venting to her how wasps are considered wild bees even though they have no business being bees because they're assholes, and suddenly we hear laughter from her professor and her classmates. She forgot to mute herself. Story 13. A student's mother had the habit of standing just off camera and very closely observing her kid. I know this because one time the student forgot to disable the mic. Everyone heard how the mother was coaching the student how to act. Don't look my way, smile, pay attention. It was next level helicoptering, right on the edge of abuse in my opinion. Our school has a good counselor and the student is getting help. All the teachers have been advised to limit contact with the mother and not make waves, lest she withdraw the student or redouble her controlling behavior. I worry about it. I had to defend my thesis over Zoom and many professors came into the call to watch. My thesis was about immune response in fish to parasites. One professor joined late and forgot to mute her mic and we got treated to this little gem. SH mommy is learning about fish parasites, which is what you'll get if you don't stop peeing in the koi pond. Edit, thanks for the gold. That's my first. This is from a couple of years ago. I was working for a private college which has several campuses. My campus was the online campus. Each year the campuses took turns hosting an annual writing conference for English/speech faculty. With it being the online campus's turn to host, we came up with the idea to make it a virtual conference which faculty members could attend from home or go to their own campus and attend with their peers in a classroom. Anyway, as one of the people on the conference committee, my job was to host several of the various breakout sessions, make sure the WebEx meeting was working, introduce the presenter of the session, monitor the Q&A, etc. I also made sure to mute the participants once it was time for the speaker to start. So there was no live mic scenario, but one of the participants left his webcam on. During the presentation, he whips out a gigantic party sub and is just going to town on it. So while everyone is watching the presenter's PowerPoint, you just see this guy, who I had met before and was a legit 6 feet 8 inches, just scarfing down a party sub in a window in the bottom of the screen. Honestly, it was more impressive than anything. So I have one. I just did 8-hour Zoom calls for 7 weeks training for a new project. On the second week, a man unmutes his call, farts the longest fart I've ever heard in my life, then when he finishes, mutes the call. I can see others laughing while muted at his fatal error of thinking he wasn't muted, and so he went to mute his call. I found this to be the highlight of the week, but the following week the guy does it again. Honestly, the second time I laughed, but then started to wonder if it was some kind of power move. College student here. This was last semester, so it was when we had first switched to all online. I had an 8 a.m. class that was Renaissance through modern art history. Anyway, this kid in the class didn't have his mic muted and he was snoring. Like snoring. My poor professor tried to wake him up and couldn't. She also had no idea how to mute him or kick him out, so we went on with the lecture. After about 5 minutes she finally said I can't fucking teach to this and ended the Zoom meeting. The rest of the semester we used VoiceThread instead. Not a Zoom, but when I was a flight attendant, we used handheld mics to give briefings and make announcements. One female passenger got in my friend's face and screamed at her that if her bags were lost or if her golf bag was damaged she would make sure to hold her personally responsible. My friend was pretty shaken not only by the loudness and anger but by the woman's spittle and tried to hold it together to give her departure briefing. Welcome aboard FLT XXX, service to Orlando. You fucking bitch. The entire plane lost it. My friend had forgotten to let go of the key on the side of the mic so all noise was picked up. This was work, not school, but someone posted a drawing of a Hello Kitty type character on the side of their presentation during a virtual meeting. One of my coworkers mumbled, "Damn, fat ass witch," when I looked again, yeah, the character had a pear body shape. It was such a weird thing for someone to say, though my brain just dismissed it as me mishearing it until they panicked a second later and apologized for not being on mute, and then I fully preceded it. Additional context, coworker is a 50-plus mother of 3. It isn't too bad, but during the graduating ceremony for a class, all staff were asked to attend and turn on their mic to clap at certain points so it wouldn't be awkward. One such staff member forgot to turn their mic back off and was heard loudly jokingly insulting her husband and asking for another drink whilst complaining about how long and boring this was. This was broadcast to a whole class, their parents, and anyone else listening. We stuck together and didn't tell anyone who it was, but we all knew. Mute your mics. Edit, changed berating to more what it actually was. Maybe I used the word wrong, but we're in the UK and that's how we show love. I heard what she was saying, guys, it wasn't abuse. Welcome to the end of another Thread Tales episode. Join us again for more Ask Reddit stories that bring us closer through shared experiences.